Okay, guys, I think we got everything set up here. Yeah, looks good. Now, this is our first stream at the Curtis Candy channel. Hopefully, we'll be doing a lot more of them. I'm hoping to do some streaming during wrestling shows. That would be ideal if we could stream whatever during Raw, SmackDown, the pay-per-views. But hey Willie, I am honestly really impressed, much more so than I thought I was going to be with this, the whole thing they have going with Roman and Rock, and now Roman and Rock pairing up against Cody, basically, and putting Seth on the opposite side of them as well. Because when they first started, excuse me, I'm just looking at different things that are popping up here. Yeah, popping up. When they first started this whole rigmarole, and you could see which way they were going to be taking this, I wasn't sure about it. When they had, when The Rock came out and he was going to replace Cody in facing Roman, it was like, okay. I like the idea of a Rock Roman match, but not necessarily now, not at this time. I don't think the timing on it was good. I'm curious too. Hey, Vegeta. Hi, Lennon. Well, I'm curious what you guys think, because this I've been trying to figure out. Where we're at right now, that press conference they had the other night was brilliant. It was done really, really well. I was impressed. That was good. But do you guys think that was the initial direction, what we saw at that press conference, was where they were going with this all along? Or is that a result of the massive amount of indignation they received from the fans about The Rock replacing Cody? I think this might be one of those cases, and it's a good thing. Anytime the business does this, I think it's a really good thing. I think it might be a direct result of fans saying, no, we don't want that shit. We don't want Rock versus Roman. And they made it, they let it be known in no uncertain terms, both during the shows and on social media. I think the WWE was paying attention to it and made some adjustments on the fly. What do you guys think? Lennon says, result of massive crybaby marks made the changes. Hey, Wolverine, are they marks? Sure, but I don't know. No, that's necessarily a crybaby thing, Lennon, just because, it's just like any other form of entertainment. People didn't like the direction they were going to take their story. And I think the business works best. It's just like working an indie show. I couldn't tell you how many times I would see a certain feel, a certain vibe, a certain way of reacting during earlier matches that changed some of what I did in my match. Because when all is said and done, you're there to give the people what they want. And hopefully everybody gets to have a good time. When you have that many people saying, no, this sucks, this isn't what we wanted, it's actually pretty cool, I believe, when they listen to that. Well, that's crazy. Yeah, Lennon, that I agree with. He says they were sending death threats to Rock's daughter, who's a GM in NXT. That's psychos. Not of you guys, anyone who does something like that, you're not a fan. You're a scumbag, period. Absolutely, without question. There's no excuse for it at all. And especially with something like this. Especially in a situation like this where you have a major corporation in the WWE that is obviously willing to listen to its fans. And instead of just being part of that voice and maybe getting things to turn the direction you would prefer, you start threatening people and stuff. That's you're just garbage at that point. Vegeta says, I think it may be a combination of both. WWE had to have known an uproar would happen, but didn't expect it to be this huge, so they backtracked once they saw how big it got. I think you may be right. I think they. I don't know though. See, on one hand, I think you're right. Then on the other, sometimes I think about it. Do you think they thought that the Rock's drawing power was such that it was almost bulletproof? In other words, they can do whatever they want as long as the Rock is involved, and the fans will just eat it up and be like, "Oh, okay, that's cool. We'll go with that." Do you think that might have been some of it? And I got nothing against. I love Dwayne Johnson. I think he's a phenomenal wrestler. But nobody in wrestling is bulletproof like that. We've seen that time and time again. I think that's true in any fandom. Whether it's, obviously I'm into anime as well, whether it's anime or Star Wars or whatever, no character and no individual is safe from the criticism. Now, Lennon said, I just don't see Cody is that guy. After this finish the story thing is over, he will be old news in a month. I don't know about old news in a month, Lennon. I've said this before. I'm with you partially in that Cody Rhodes is an excellent wrestler, phenomenal wrestler. He's just not a guy who ever hit for me personally. I mean, I don't dislike him, but he's not a guy I want at the top just because, again, it's just to taste. He's just not my pick. I like Drew McIntyre better. I like Randy Orton better. These are guys I would prefer having at the top. So, to some degree, I agree with you. The whole finish the story thing, it's cool. It's well written. It's a good angle. I don't get behind it huge just because, again, I'm not a monster Cody Rhodes fan. But it's a good story, and I think Roman has had the belt too long, to be honest with you. So I would still consider Cody taking the strap off him, a positive move. But yeah, recent Drew McIntyre. Now, years ago, Drew had some real issues working the mic. So did Roman, to be fair. He's gotten much better. I mean, he's never going to be a top talker, but he's gotten much better. And I think his in-ring work is amazing. It's impeccable. And I like his character. So I'd really like to see him get more push. Orton, I think, is just amazing. I think he's one of the all-time greats. And I don't know how much longer he'll be able, his career is going to go on. I'd love to see him get another run. So yeah, I wouldn't be sad to see Cody take the strap, and then I wouldn't be sad at all to see somebody else take it off Cody. Cube Gamer says, I definitely don't think this was the original path to the story. Me either, pal. Especially seeing the way Cody bowed down to Rock on SmackDown and just left and then came out during the press conference angry. I think they realized and fixed it quick. Masterfully done. I think so. As was said earlier, it could be they might have been dipping, the WWE this is, they might have been dipping their toes in the water a little, maybe. But I don't think this was the overall plan at all. I agree with you. And it is to their credit. Think about it, though. How often do you see that in any form of entertainment, whether it's a TV show or a movie series or whatever, where the fans en masse, in big numbers, say, no, that's not what we want to see. How often does a company listen to that? And I'm not just blowing smoke up WWE's butt. I'm more than happy to discuss any of their failings as well. But in fairness, if you're gonna call them out when they do shit, it's fair to call them out when you think they've done something right. And I think they did something right by listening to people. You think, Lennon? Lennon says Drew might be next world champ. I would love to see that. I enjoy watching the guy. See, as far as favorite wrestlers, I always looked at it like this, and I think you guys will agree with me. The wrestlers that I always considered favorites are the ones that a lot of times, and I want you, that's another thing during the stream. I'm hoping you guys can help catch me up on what happened on SmackDown. I didn't get to see any of it. If I'm doing stuff, if I have wrestling on and I'm doing other things, which happens to me a lot, I got a bunch of different things going on. If I hear a wrestler's name and it's like, I'm stopping what I'm doing to see this, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. If they're working a match, I'm going to stop what they're doing. If this person is wrestling, that's how I know somebody has really hit it for me. And again, Drew McIntyre is one of those guys. If I hear Drew McIntyre's name, I'm going to look up and go, oh, what are we doing? Randy Orton. Several of the women's division is really good. Asuka, right off the top of my head. Asuka in the women's division. And you guys know me with names and the post-concussion syndrome. The woman who just came in at the Royal Rumble with the silver hair and the amazing build and athleticism. She's, oof. I only saw a little bit of her. That's the first I saw of her. But holy crap. Jade Cargill. Thank you, Vegeta. Holy crap. Color me impressed with her. That's a name I got to get the stick in my head. Because, yeah, if you tell me Jade Cargill, I'm going to look up for sure. She was impressive. Thank you, Karamba. Lennon says Vinnie Mac even gave CM Punk 400-day reign. Dude still complain. You guys know that I'm not a Punk fan. I just and as I've said over and over, there's a lot of people will say, well, I never hear you saying anything bad about anybody because I'm not here to break everybody's career down. And I have nothing but respect for anybody that put in the mileage it takes to get to where these guys and girls have. So I'm not going to shit on anybody. I will tell you what I think of an individual. And in the case of Punk, again, he doesn't get me excited for anything. He's a good in-ring worker, but his amount of baggage and his amount of complaining and everything, it's just too much for me. I just don't care about him. If Punk doesn't wrestle again, I don't want that to sound wrong. I don't want him to get hurt any more than he has been. I don't mean injured. I mean, if I don't see him wrestle again, I wouldn't care. He just strikes me as a guy that if I was still working and he was in the locker room with me, he would annoy the crap right out of me. Let's see. I mean, they've been listening the past decade. They may CM Punk and Daniel Cropper champions because marks were crying. Yeah, to a degree. I mean, you couldn't ignore what happened with Daniel Bryan. I mean, that whole yes, yes, yes thing. Again, you don't have much of a choice there. I think here the WWE could have been headstrong and just said, no, this is the story we're telling. You guys will come to enjoy it. And they didn't. They shifted gears. So I think that's admirable. Now, I just mentioned these two guys. I like this idea of Orton and Drew. I think that gets me jacked up. I think those guys will put on a hell of a match. It's amazing just how good a wrestler Randy Orton is. I remember his dad well. I remember his granddad. And neither one of them were anything close to what Randy is. Jeez. He's really become, I think, one of the best wrestlers in history. Lennon says, I'll say this about the women's division. Future is looking good. Agreed. NXT has a bunch of young, hot, talented wrestlers, so kudos to Shawn Michaels. He's going excellent. Yeah, that Jade Cargill, I was blown away. She looked really good. There was another girl in there, and I'm hoping it was just a bad night. I think she was nicknamed Pitbull. Was that her nickname? She had a rough night in the Rumble. She really screwed up several spots. Looked out of sync the entire time she was in there. Had a good look about her. Looked like she was going to be really make an impact. But and it's true. Listen, guys, in sports and or entertainment, I've been fortunate enough to have a long time in both. You can have bad nights. I'm hoping that was just a bad night for her because that was tough. Vegeta says, Drew McIntyre is my personal favorite of all time, and he deserves to win a world title in front of a live crowd. Yeah, he carried the company on his back during the COVID no fans era. He deserves it. I agree. And I think, even beyond that, I think he deserves it just because he is that much fun to watch. And he's certainly a guy you look at and go, yeah, I can believe that's the champion of your company. As I said, his mic work has gotten way better than it was. That's the only concern I have, is he still does struggle here and there, really, really getting you jacked up with his mic work. And that I'm afraid that gets exposed when you become champ. You really got to be strong on the mic. Now, they could give him a manager, but I think giving him a manager at this point would ruin the flow, if that makes any sense at all. I think we're used to seeing Drew as Drew, and if you gave him a manager now, even a casual fan's going to go, oh, they're doing that to protect him because he can't talk. So I don't think he can do that. Mintman says, listen, if The Rock is so rich and powerful, why doesn't he do what really brings people in? Bring Eddie Guerrero back to life. Oh, Eddie was amazing. I've told you guys this before. I will never forget when Eddie was in between WWE runs. I think he got, I believe at the time there had been some substance issues and he was away from the company. He worked the indies. And, of course, by this time, you guys got to remember, I'm 62. So by this time, I was already into my 40s. I was coming to the close of my career anyway. But he would come to the indies, come in, work his match, super nice gentleman to everybody, and then stay after. Now, this is a guy who's used to playing in front of 20,000 people, in Madison Square Garden and headlining WWE pay-per-views. And he would stay after the shows, get back in that ring, and work with young guys. Just to work with young guys. I'll never forget that. It's like, holy crap. Oh, what a class individual. I've never seen, and don't get me wrong, most all the ex-big names I've worked with have been great guys, but I've never seen anybody do that. I'll never forget that. What a cool giving guy Eddie Guerrero was. Vegeta says his mic work, now that he's back to being a heel, has improved by a big margin. Drew, yeah, in my opinion, he's been killing it on the mic since the turn. I will agree, as a face, his mic work became bland. Yeah, that's what I was saying. His mic work's gotten much better. That's my only concern, though, is you got to keep that heat on the mic if you're going to carry the top belt. You gotta. I hope he can do it, because, again, I like him. But as I said, I would like to see in the pecking order for me, I'd like to see Orton get another run with the belt, just because I really enjoy Orton as champion. And, he's getting near the end of his career. And then I'd like to see Drew take it off him. I think that'd be a great passing of the torch. Lennon says, what are your thoughts on Karrion Kross's faction? They look like a bunch of jobbers. Only star presence was Paul Ellering. I've only seen bits and pieces of that, Lennon. I don't want to say or say anything that sounds negative, because I really don't know enough about him. I will say this. I agree in the sense that it wasn't something I looked at and went, ooh, got to get me more of that. But I've only seen little bits and pieces of it. Mintman says, I was really happy for Drew when he beat Brock Lesnar in a pretty dominant fashion. I wish he had a longer run where he was pretty dominant rather than the back and forth matches we got. I agree. I've always wanted Drew to get a push. And that's one of the reasons, just what you're talking about, that's one of the reasons I always had mad respect for Brock Lesnar. Do you guys remember that pay-per-view years ago? I think it was a Rumble. Yeah, it was a Rumble. Where Lesnar was in the ring. He was the resident monster, tossing people aside, and Drew took him out, and Lesnar worked his ass off to make sure that McIntyre took him out in a big, spectacular way. That's why I have nothing but respect for Brock, because a lot of people have issue with, well, of course, with the whole thing with McMahon aside, have issue with him because he was only in it for the money. He was always a part-time. That's all fine and good. All I know is when the guy was in the ring, he entertained the hell out of me. And I don't give a damn what his impetus was. If he's in it just for the money, that's fine. I never saw him taking a shortcut in there. I never saw him refusing to do something in there. And when it was time to put people over, nobody did it any better than Brock. And I think in some ways that just being in the business for the money almost gives you all the more reason to want to see the guy, because Brock isn't going to play petty politics. He's not going to cry about dropping the belt to somebody because it doesn't. He's telling the story. He's paid to do this. He knows what he needs to do to keep the paycheck coming, not only for him, but everybody else on the card. Because your top guy, man, he's the one that gets, that money rolls downhill. He's the one that helps get everybody paid. And Brock will do whatever it takes. If they come in and tell him, it's best for business if you lose to XYZ, Brock will lose to XYZ. He don't give a shit. And I think that's good. Unfortunately, no. Jacob says, did you ever work Eddie when he was on shows with you between runs? I was on a couple shows with him, but I didn't work him on those nights. I wish I could have. Again, I cannot say enough nice things about him. Super nice guy. Fantastic guy. Call Me Raffy says, is going for the money the same thing as going in the business for yourself? No, not in wrestling terms. No, it's quite the opposite. Going in business for yourself means doing the things that you think will put you over despite and screw what anybody else wants, needs, or is best for the show. In that context. No, Brock's in it for the money, saying, listen, excuse me, they pay me a lot of money to be a professional wrestler, and I like making money. But he puts his all into being a professional wrestler and puts his all into telling the stories that need to be told. Nothing used to irritate me more, especially in the indies, when guys, and I would tell them flat out, when guys would whine about wanting to win. It's like, okay, who gives a shit? You should be out there to tell the best story you can. And if you're losing, tell a great story. If you're winning, tell a great story. Now, when you get to the WWE or start working your way up that trajectory, sure, belts help a little because it gets your name recognition out there a little more and can help you make more money. But when you're in the indies and learning the craft and everything, shut your mouth and do what's best for everybody involved. I have only one time that I can remember in my career wanted to win a match. The booker this night had left it up to me and my opponent, who's a good friend of mine, great guy, who was going over, and it was the one and only time my mom came to a wrestling show. So I went to Haas, my pal, beforehand, and I said, listen, I'm embarrassed to even ask this. I said, but my mom's here tonight, and I didn't even get the sentence out. And Haas said, no. He said, oh, we're putting you over. It was a hardcore match. He said, we're putting you over big, and that's just the kind of guy he was. But other than that, I don't give a shit. We had if you guys want to hear the story, I'll tell it quick. We were doing a show in Vermont years ago that would be a once-a-month thing, and we would pack that house. It was out in the sticks, and man, they came from all over to watch that. And so they were having a tournament for the title. I was the top heel. My buddy, Mike Stark, who wrestled as Johnny Kane, he was the top face. And the promoter, his name was Bumpy, he was building it up to where we would be in the finals together. Well, this was before the days of the internet, or the internet was prevalent at all. So leading into the month we were having the title match, Bumpy bought a billboard and was taking out local TV advertising, everything hyping this match. So we get there and we're all sit together and we're putting the match together, me and the promoter, Bumpy, the guy who managed me, Kenny, and Mike, my opponent. And we were putting it together, and Bumpy says, okay. He says, as far as who gets the strap, you want to just toss a coin? I said, no. I said, you can't toss a coin. I said, I've come here every month and kicked the crap out of their favorites because it was part of the tournament. I had to keep winning to get to the finals. I said, we'll have Mike go over big. I mean, we'll have a good competitive match, but I want him to beat the shit out of me. When it's all said and done, and I put all kinds of brutality in that match. But that's how you tell the story. You can't keep doing that to the fans. You know, they hated me. I'd never played the heel. I was asked to do it that way. More hardcore than I did at these shows. And these people despised me. And you can't just keep putting me over. You got to give them their due. You got to give them their comeuppance. And that was one of my favorite matches ever, putting that over. I threw a tantrum. I was bleeding bad. So I'm on the ground crying to people that they shouldn't be laughing at me. That's the beauty of telling stories. Let's see. Jacob says, I know you trained and worked out with Joe and Tully, but did you ever meet Arn Anderson during those early years? Unfortunately, no. I would have liked to. No, and Tully was just there briefly. Tully, now, by his own admission, though, Tully will tell you now that back in the day, he had a questionable attitude. But Tully was a jerk to me. Did I hold it against him? Nah, I was greener than the grass at home. So, did he need to go out of his way to be a jerk? No, didn't need to do that either. But his dad, I owe a big debt of gratitude to, because when I got Joe Blanchard was Tully's dad and was the promoter. I can't remember the name. It was out of San Antonio, Texas. I can't remember what the promotion name was. I could look it up. But that was me trying out for the big time, and Joe got me aside, and he said, listen, and he told me what it was like in no uncertain terms. He didn't make it sound worse than it was, didn't make it sound better than it was. He said, but this is what you're going to do. He said, you'll be on the road 300 days a year. He said, you're going to make next to nothing for money, and he didn't sugarcoat anything. I was willing to make any sacrifices I needed for the business, except the entire lack of a family life. I've always been very family oriented. So that's when I made the decision that, I love wrestling. I'll stay with it, but I'm going to stay with it in my own backyard, wherever that may be. I'm going to work the indies and do the very best job I can in the indies, but I don't have any desire to go to that next level and make that sacrifice of family. And I think it would have taken me a lot longer to figure that out, and who knows how I might have screwed things up for myself if it weren't for Joe Blanchard taking me aside and just being really, really honest with me. So I have nothing but respect for Joe Blanchard. And he also gave me the first injury I had in wrestling. Not injury, pain, because he was working with us and he was showing, and he's right. New guys, what they'll do, a lot of times they do things too lightly because they don't want to hurt the other guy. And Joe would tell you, it hurts. It's wrestling. Do not, he said, when you throw a punch, I know what it was. He took me in an arm bar and he was throwing the forearm up your arm, under your arm, like boom, like that. He said, make contact. He said, you hit real hard in safe places, and boom, he wanted to make the point home. Talk about hit real hard. Holy crap. That old man could swing. Yeah, Spaz Kid saw me wrestle a couple times. I don't know if you guys are interested. I could tell you a story about the one was hysterical. But my wife didn't want him to go to my shows when he was real little, which I completely understand. They were always bloody massacres. But yes, he got to see me a couple times. And the one thing, guys, I've always lamented that I don't have on tape, because it was long before the days of cell phones where everybody had a camera always on them. We were at a show and I brought Brax with me, Spaz Kid. And he was little at the time, very little. But I wasn't working it. I think I'd been injured. I had something going on where I couldn't work the show. But anyway, so we're in the audience. And it was before the show started, and the crowd was still coming in. It was a good draw. So Brax really wanted to see the ring. So I brought him around the barricade, and I let him go in. We went in the ring together, and I started messing with him. And I don't know, he was maybe 3 or 4, probably 4. And I started messing with him, wrestling him around and stuff. And the crowd starts, I wasn't even thinking about them, starts getting into it. So I told him to hit me. Well, he hit me. I bumped down, and I said, pin me. He got on me and pinned me, and the whole crowd, I was patting the mat, the whole crowd counted with us, going 1, 2, 3. They popped like you wouldn't believe. Braxton saw it, and I thought, this is a little bitty kid. He's going to be intimidated by it. He saw it. He gets up off me. He goes right to the ropes with his arms. He was eating it up. He was the champ, and he was going to let everybody know. And all I have is the memory. I don't care how much brain damage I take. I'll never forget that. It was one of the. I remember laying there on the mat, laughing, looking at him. He barely came up to the second rope with his arms up in the air. It was awesome. If it happened today, I'm sure I'd have plenty of people willing to send me their video of it, but that was long before phones in your pockets. Let's see. Cassie says, I think this whole situation, Cody Rock situation, isn't going to work. I think WWE generally thought Rock would get cheered going for head of the table, and he might have if they didn't fumble Cody to do it. Right, we're talking about that. I tend to agree. I think this was, as somebody mentioned earlier, WWE might have been testing it out, but I tend to lean towards they were caught off guard. I don't think they saw this coming. I don't think they thought people would be that willing to turn on The Rock. But Cody Rhodes has a huge fan base, passionate fan base. Plus, you've been building this story for so long, the finish the story thing. I would love to see Roman versus The Rock. But to be honest with you, even though I'm not necessarily a huge Cody Rhodes fan, I'd rather see Cody versus Roman because I think it's past time for Roman to drop the belt. So I'm hoping that Cody takes it from him. And then what I'm hoping for, as I had said earlier, I would like to see Orton get another run with it and then Drew take it from Randy. And does anybody know why the big delay in bringing Braun Breaker up to the main roster? Now that I have this channel and, we're all together here watching, and I like to be able to talk wrestling with you guys every day. I can talk wrestling forever and never shut up about wrestling. I got to start watching more and more wrestling so I can stay somewhat knowledgeable to keep up with you guys, or at least have a conversation with you guys. But why Braun Breaker? I mean, certainly he's got the lineage. He's got the look. What I've seen of him, he certainly seems to be able to work. Why is he still in NXT? Does anybody know? Is there something going on there? Jacob says they want to break the imaginary Hogan record. Yeah, I'm with you, Jacob. I understand that it's become a new thing in the WWE. Let's break records for longevity. But come on, when you got a guy breaking a longevity record with a belt, and the guy whose record he broke defended it 1,300 times, and he's defended it 46 times, he didn't really break anything. Mintman says, I think they just need a good time to insert Braun Breaker into a story that will really skyrocket him. Is that what it is, you think? I would love to know. I've been dying to see this kid. I think he looks good. Oh, okay. Jacob says Baron Corbin wanted to work with him and help him polish up his timing. Okay. Now that's legit. That's fair. You don't want to work the main roster and need work on something as important as timing. Because for one thing, if your timing's off, you're dangerous. And if you're dangerous, you're not going to get much of a push when guys start saying they're not going to work with you. HD says most likely they didn't have time for Braun with all the talent they have on the main roster. That could be too. Yeah, what you guys say makes sense. It might be they're just looking for the perfect spot. As was said here, that, bring him in when he can really, really be impactful. That makes sense. Because I'm just anxious to see him. I certainly liked watching his dad and watching his uncle. So I'd really like to see him work. Yeah, I agree. Call me Raph. He is breaking a record when he doesn't even wrestle. I agree. And again, that's not to crap on Roman Reigns. I am actually a Roman Reigns fan. I love watching him in a match. I think it's really admirable how he was able to elevate his game on the mic, because the early days of the Shield and stuff, oof, Roman was not good on the mic. Well, he even had that time that Cena was shooting on him basically in the ring, that bringing that up. And it was true. And he's gotten quite good. Surprisingly good. So I got nothing but good things to say about him. Other than that, I think he's had the title way too long. I'm not interested in a Roman Reigns title reign anymore. I don't know about you guys. I'm just, okay, enough. Let's move on with the story here. Right. HD says, as a Steiner fan, I would like to see more Braun too. Yeah. I mean, the Steiner brothers were just amazing. Back in the day, there were some great tag teams back in that era. The Steiner brothers and the Road Warriors. Oof, good stuff. Salt Nation says, I hope CM Punk becomes a champ off of Drew if he goes against Seth, because Punk and Drew's promo was amazing. Cody becomes champ. Yeah, see, as I said, I'm not a Punk fan. I would never... Punk, though, I don't want it to seem like I hate the guy, because he is a good wrestler. So if Punk's got a match going, I'll watch his match. I'm not getting up for chips during Punk's match just because I find him to be kind of a crybaby, because he can definitely work. I never root for him to be put as a top guy just because I don't like his personality. Jacob says, I wanted Knight or Orton to take the strap at Royal Rumble. Brax really likes LA Knight. Big LA Knight fan. I do too. It's hard not to like him. I don't even think does he sound and act like Stone Cold and The Rock? Yeah. So what? Big deal. I don't see that as a big detriment. I think he does it well. He's certainly not doing a direct ripoff, but yes, you can tell where they've heavily influenced the way he conducts himself. But a lot of people are down on him over that. It's like, I don't care if he does it well. There's nothing original really to be done. You could always be compared to somebody else. He looks good in the ring. Hell of a worker. Steiner screwdriver is still insane to see. Definitely. It definitely is. It's too bad Scotty was a legendary hothead. But Rick now, I never got to meet either of them. I almost got to meet Rick once, and something went wrong. I don't remember. I can't even remember all the details. I just remember being disappointed. I don't remember if it was a wrestling show or, an event of some sort. We were both supposed to be there, and something happened with travel or something, because I was just disappointed I didn't get to meet him. Jacob says, my backyard wrestling persona was based on Scott Hall. Everyone steals something. Yeah, and the thing, too, what people have to remember with things like, again, you're saying LA Knight, well, he stole from The Rock. Yes and no. I mean, if you happen to have a personality that is similar to what someone else has done, it just makes it tough, because what do you have to do? Do you have to change your whole gimmick because of it? I mean, it's just like when I first broke into entertainment writing screenplays. It wasn't uncommon at all for several writers, to have a similar concept. They never read each other's stuff. It was just cool story ideas that were similar. So it can sometimes just be nothing more than a coincidence. And as I said, LA Knight, he worked the hell out of a match. So, yeah, I like watching him. Yeah, Cassidy. Like I say, Brax. Again, I know we're at the wrestling channel, so I need to explain. It's not like we have the history we do at the Spaz Boys Comedy. Brax, or Spaz Kid, is my son. Salt Nation says, I love LA Knight. His promos are good. Yeah, he is strong on the mic. And he has a good look, but he is getting up there in age. He should get pushed soon, now or never. I was thinking that too. Considering how old he was by the time he's got this notoriety, you got to do something with him. Are you going to push him? Or, unfortunately, is it going to be one of those cases where he ends up reverting back to being the stepping stone guy? The guy that was always had a lot of pop, so people know his name, and you can make a name for somebody by putting them over him. And I'd hate to see that happen to him. Certainly hate to see that happen to him without getting the big run, the big push first. Cassidy says also his is just the WWE version of dummy he was doing in TNA. I'd never seen that, Cassidy. Now that you say that, I'd forgotten about that. Somebody else told me that. And that's what I mean. It's just, you can have a same idea as somebody else. Best example I ever saw was, for me personally in wrestling, I developed this, I'm trying to think of the year I started using it. Now, it's really close to 30 years ago or more. I started doing a move I was Curtis Candy, so this move was called the bellyache. All it was a reverse power slam. I'd pick him up, put him over my shoulder, the opponent's back to my shoulder, and slam him forward. Well, it was just shortly after that. Now, I don't know which of us started using it first, but it was just shortly after that Ron Simmons started doing it, calling it the Dominator. Or at least we started seeing Ron Simmons. Okay, people going back and forth in and out of my front door, so making this go off, started doing the same thing. Now, Ron Simmons didn't see my dopey indie ass doing it. He didn't steal it from me. I'd never seen him doing it. If he was doing it first, I didn't steal it from him. Both just had the same idea. And besides, I don't want to fight Ron Simmons for rights to something. I always say, if you're in a locker room, you can't be in the wrestling locker room, you can't be anybody's bitch. But there are some guys you just really don't want to get into an altercation with, and Ron Simmons would be in that category. But I mean, it's like I say, it's just happened. We both had what we thought was a good idea. He would have absolutely killed me, Jordan. I mean, I've got a fighting background, but Ron Simmons, man, that's playing in the big leagues. That's like, okay, if Haku is here, Ron Simmons is right here. Damn, yes, plays in Arizona. Inverted power slam and heart punch. You had one hell of a finisher set. Yeah, Jacob, I call that the punchline. Yep, I just did mine a little different, than the classic. Like Stan Stasiak used to take their arm behind their head. Sorry about the dogs. I don't know what the hell's going on. And hit them with a heart punch. Mine, I would hook their left arm with my left arm, be standing next to them, and come up with a palm heel strike up into the heart. Oh, Haku is a crazy motherfucker. Nicest guy you ever want to meet, though, Jordan. And I didn't get to meet him. I just, going through people who have. I mean, I know a lot of people. Well, I made that video here at the channel. You guys can see it. Oh, I think it got blocked in some areas because of WWE content. But one of the guys we brought through our wrestling school, Jeff Starr, gets his first dark match ever, and it's against Haku. He was so freaked out. It was great. He comes to me going, Curtis, I got a dark match. I go, yeah, I heard, Jeff. Congratulations. You don't understand. I got to wrestle Haku. But like I told him, I said, listen, Haku is as professional as they come. From everything I've ever heard about him, he's a great guy, super guy. You're going to be fine. But it's easy for me to say. It wasn't me, but absolutely turned out to be true. Jeff said you couldn't have asked for a nicer man. And Haku gave him was very complimentary to him about the match and everything, and said, you got a future, kid, and just good dude. Jacob says, what do you think of the Superman punch used by Orange Cassidy and Roman Reigns? Superman punch is a cool idea. I think that's because it's something that in a real fighting situation can work. So I think given that, and especially now with this day and age with the UFC being as prominent as it is, people have seen that a Superman punch can really actually work in a fight. And it looks great. I mean, it's a very theatric move, so it's perfect for wrestling. My favorite things was now, from the time I was a kid, I was always into fighting arts. So when I was a kid, you didn't have the internet. You didn't have much on TV about actual fighting styles. So I would go to the library and get books. So I knew what a rear naked choke was, and I knew how to apply one. And it used to make me laugh because when I was a kid, especially with Chief Jay Strongbow and a few of the others who were using it, the sleeper hold was like a really big move. And people would always point to the sleeper hold as proof that wrestling was fake. Oh, yeah. Okay. He just went to sleep because you put your arms around him. It was like, one of the things that I can guarantee you is not fake in the respect that if he cinched that in for real, you're going to sleep is what people thought was fake. Because that's all a sleeper hold is, really, is basically the rear naked choke. You're putting your hand here, it's a little out of position, but it's the same basic idea. And people would, oh, that's proof that wrestling's fake. You don't fall asleep from getting somebody's... Yeah, you do. You fall asleep and it can be much worse. Let's see, that's when you just keep going, do not potato him. Yeah, just don't piss him off. And the thing is, Jordan, even in the ring, and that's true with any of the experienced guys, and that's what I told Jeff too. Jeff was good. I said, you're an excellent wrestler, a phenomenal worker. You're not going to do anything to screw things up. You'll be fine. But yeah, you didn't want to mess with him. I'll tell you who doesn't get credit for it, and it's somebody I worked with a bunch of times, and is a real life badass, is Ray Apollo. And what's Ray's real last name? Licacelli, I believe. But he was the second Doink, the clown in WWE. He wrestled as Ray Apollo. He had a few other gimmicks. Real life badass, and also one of the best storytellers I've ever met in my life. I mean, you have all these different YouTubers, podcasts that do wrestling interviews, and they're missing out on gold by not getting a whole array. They only want, it seems like, which I understand, they want name recognition. You know, they want to be interviewing The Undertaker. They want to be interviewing Ric Flair. Ray Apollo doesn't have that name recognition, but you will not find a better, more entertaining storyteller. The stories he used to tell about traveling with Captain Lou Albano and the Samoans, the Wild Samoans, you know, the patriarchs of the Anoa'i family, are hysterical. Oh my God, he had great stories, and and he could tell them too. I would love to, somebody's again, these big name interviewers really have to get a hold of Ray, because I know he's still around, and just talk to him, because it'll make for great podcast. Blaze in Arizona said, Doink, haven't heard that name in a while. It used to scare me as a kid. Scared a lot of people as a kid. Matt Bourne was the original. And then when he stopped doing it, it was Ray, and then I think a couple others had it after him. But like I say, Ray was a scary guy. I believe he was a Sambo fighter. But he knew his shit. I can remember one time Ray hated putting on that makeup. I asked him one time, I said, Ray, how long did it take for you to get tired of putting that fucking makeup on? He goes, about one fucking day, he goes. And he hated it. So I don't know if they still do. Back in the day in New York, you had to have a commissioner in the locker room. You had to have an EMT come in, take everybody's blood pressure and everything. So the EMT's going through, and he's taking everybody's blood pressure. He's got his little pad, and he's writing down, making sure everybody could pass, had blood pressure levels acceptable. And Ray was in the bathroom. Now, that it was like a locker room style bathroom. There were individual doors on the stalls, so you could look right into the bathroom. The bathroom itself didn't have doors, so I could see he was in there. He's putting on his makeup, and Ray was kind of a surly guy anyway. If you weren't, I'm not to the other workers, but to the general population, he's not a people person, and he would tell you that. And he didn't like commissioners and stuff. So I see he's putting on his makeup, and he was always irritable when he was putting on his makeup. So this little mousy guy, looked like a cartoon character, who was actually doing the blood pressure test. He's scurrying around, and I hear him saying, where's Ray Apollo? Has anybody seen a Ray Apollo? I said, yeah, he's in the bathroom. I said, just give him a minute. Let him get done putting on his makeup. He'll be right out. And he goes, oh, well, no, he's the last one. I only got one more. I can get out of here. I said, I'm telling you, leave him alone. Let him get done putting on his makeup, and he'll come out and you can take his blood pressure. No. I'll go in and get him. It's just one. I said, you go do what you want to do. He goes walking in. So I'm leaning forward. It's like, this is going to be fun. He goes in and he says, are you Ray Apollo? And Ray pays no attention to him. And he continues putting on his makeup. He goes, excuse me, are you Ray Apollo? And I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what he said, but something along these lines. You see Ray looking. It was almost like a monster movie where the monster is exposed. He turns to him and he had those crazy eyes on. And he said, listen, motherfucker. He said, I heard him tell you to wait till I was done with this. Now get the fuck out of here, he said. And he said something. I don't know if he said you're going to be leaving with your head up your ass or something like that, but whatever it was, it resonated because that guy, I mean, you could literally see him shake from where I was sitting, and he ran out of that locker. And he came and he just sat down on one of the benches near me and he just kind of put his head down. And a little while later, Ray comes out and he comes over to the guy and he stuck his arm in front of him like, here, put the cuff on. I don't think the guy even really checked his blood pressure. I think he just put the cuff on, pumped it, and then got out of there. But it was funny. Oh, Blazing Arizona says, met Captain Lou at a car show once. Very cool, nice, very cool guy. And Lou was very similar to what you saw on TV. He was crazy. He was. Good dude, though. The last time I ever saw him was just months before he passed. I was it was called Crossgates Mall. It's in Albany, New York. And my wife was shopping in there. And she was in some store that I wasn't interested in. So I was just standing outside the store and I was kind of leaning up against the wall. And the mall was pretty crowded. But I see a bow-legged half run, half strut thing coming down the hall. It's like, I think I know who that is. And sure enough, it's Lou. And so he comes striding up, and I reached out and went by and I smacked him. And he looks at me and I said, Lou, what are you doing? He says, oh shit, brother, where the fuck is Dick's? He goes like that. I said, it's right down the hall. He goes, all right, I gotta go. And he took off. It was him and the Wild Samoans were at Dick's to sign autographs. And he just made me laugh. There goes that bow leg down the hall scurrying away. And that was the last time I got to see him, and he passed. Mario himself, yeah. Adian, yeah. Was it unmistakable that walk that Lou had, that wobble walk. But it really makes me sad now to even think about it, because again, it wasn't much longer after that he passed. Did you? Mintman? I believe I got to meet the first Doink the Clown, Matt Bourne. Did you? I never met Matt. Again, a lot of the stories I have are because I was fortunate enough that I work with so many people. I got to know a lot of the guys by association, not by face to face, but I knew so many people who knew this person that you get a lot of great stories. Jacob says, my first match ever seen was Matt Bourne, original Doink versus Buddy Rose. Really, Playboy Buddy Rose, and I never met him face to face. We had a little bit of an argument on the internet once in the early days of message boards. And I'm trying to remember exactly what it was about. Again, everything I did was hardcore. That was my gimmick. And so we're on, again, one of the early, probably an AOL message board or something, one of the first real instant messaging things with a bunch of wrestling fans. And I was just talking to people, and they found out that I was a wrestler, so they had tons of questions, especially back then, because you didn't have all this information about the business, so people were really interested. And Buddy Rose came in, and he had been certified as being who he was and everything as well by whatever site this was. And so the gang was asking me questions, and I said, the way I wrestle isn't for everybody. I said, but what we do, I said, it's very physical, because like me and my buddy Haas, if we're going to get down in front of the crowd, you're going to land punches and you're going to land kicks. You try not to kill the guy, but you're going to land stuff because you want to make it look like a fight. And, it's one thing to come up a little short with a punch in the ring where you can cover a lot of things with speed by doing it fast. It's another when they're within inches of you. And Buddy kind of, I thought, at least in text, it seemed like it came off that way. Kind of like turned his nose up at me and he says, well, he said, if you're good at it, you can make it look real without actually hitting anybody. And I was like, okay, buddy. I said, buddy, I said, I'm well aware. I said, I've been in this business longer than you have. I said, all I'm saying is this is how we prefer to do our business. This small group of wrestlers and I, who like doing the hardcore stuff, we want impact. We want to make the crowd go, ooh. We want them to think twice about, oh, do I want a career in wrestling? Because we would land some punches. We'll land some kicks. That's how we want to do business. And if it raises a potato on us, that's fine. It's not long-lasting effects. If it cuts us, so what? We have Band-Aids. And he kind of stuck to it. And he said, well, I don't believe there's a place for that in wrestling. He said, you should be able to make it look convincing. And he started to piss me off. And so I said, buddy, I don't know where this disrespect comes from. I said, but I disagree with you. I said, there's a lot of big names working nowadays that would disagree with you too. I said, and to be honest with you, I'm a little offended at your tone in here. I said, so you know what? Fuck you. And I waited for him to come back because it's like, we could cross paths someday. I was really pissed. But as soon as I said that, he came back very conciliatory. He said, no. He said, sorry. He said, I didn't mean for it to come off like that. He said, I read back on what I wrote. And yeah, it sounded like I was demeaning you. He said, I didn't mean it like that. He's just saying I put a lot of years into making it look real. And I said, well, I understand. So did I. And I can do that as well. I take great pride in it. But I said, but to shit on somebody because they have a way of doing things that is agreeable to everybody involved is bullshit. And he just left the chat shortly after, and I never heard from him again. Where the fuck is Dix? Yeah, man. I'll never forget it. That's exactly what he said. And of course, he's shouting it too. The mall's crowded, kids around. Where the fuck is Dix? He goes. Alternate reality would be Curtis on ECW and the BWO. The ECW guys, we had a school in Schenectady, New York. And they would do shows in Schenectady. And when they would come in for the shows, they would work out at our gym. So we got to meet a lot of them. Good guys. A couple of the guys kept more to themselves. Nobody was an asshole. But I mean, most of the guys were right there with you, just hanging out with you and stuff. A couple of guys would stay to themselves, but mostly a really good crew. Where's Thong says, only wrestler I ever met was Steamboat, and he was a super sweet guy. I've heard that. Phenomenal worker. His matches with Flair are top tier. Oh, his matches with Flair are some of the truly deserving legends in the history of wrestling. Yeah. Yeah, Steamboat, last I knew, I keep forgetting, I'm in the South now. I know Steamboat had a gym that was really popular. This was years ago. I don't know if he still does. I think it was here in North Carolina. It was North or South Carolina, I believe. I never thought about that, of maybe looking up and seeing where his gym is, if he still has it. I'm trying to think. Steamboat's older than me, I believe. I'm 62. I think Steamboat's a couple years older than me. Jacob says, you versus Sabu would be a dream match. Oh, it would have been fun to work Sabu. I would have loved to have gotten that opportunity. Mintman says, I heard Taz could be very extra in his match prep. I heard that too, Mintman. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard those same rumors. Funaki has a wrestling school here in San Antonio, does he? Oh, you're in San Antonio, Mintman? That's where we were talking about Joe Blanchard earlier. That's where I first went to try out for the big time, was in San Antonio with Joe Blanchard. Jay Money says, I met Slaughter once. He came to a local baseball game about 3 years ago. Yeah, I've met Slaughter. He's a good dude. Oh, and Mick Foley at our local block by that Hart Theater. Both decent guys. I'd love to meet Mick Foley. Being that was my whole career was the hardcore style, I would love to have gotten to see Mick Foley. That would have been amazing. Gotten to meet him. Oh, cool. Mintman says, nice. Yeah, San Antonio native. Lots of schools and promotions here. Oh, wrestling was always so big in Texas. You know what I remember most, though, Mintman? When I went down to try out, it was in May. was Cinco de Mayo or May, yeah, Cinco de Mayo, I think it was happening that weekend. And now this is going back to the very early 80s. This would have been 81, I think it was. So I drive over to San Antonio. I lived in Roswell, New Mexico. I drive over, and the overnight low, this is in May, and the overnight low was supposed to be like 82, 83 degrees. It was so hot. But I pull in, I get into my motel room. I go in, throw my stuff down, I turn on the air conditioner, and the air conditioner goes, and that was about it. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me. So I go to the front desk, and they're like, well, we don't have any other rooms. And because it was this holiday, they had a parade going for Cinco de Mayo. There were no rooms to be had because all kinds of groups were there for the parade. And so I sat there, and I cannot sleep when it's hot. Fortunately, my wife is the same way. Otherwise, we'd have been divorced by now because we both need it really cool to sleep. So I just sat there and stewed all night before this this big tryout. And then we go the next day, and the gym didn't have any air conditioning either. So it's like 120 in there. It was quite the weekend. Jacob says, do you think cutting your teeth early on around guys like Joe, Tully, and Snuka, guys like them, help make you a better wrestler? Oh, anything you could get from the experienced guys. Now, again, Joe gave me great information. In a short period of time that I was with him, Joe Blanchard really helped set the stage for how I look at the business and everything. Tully, again, he just came in and out, was acted like he was too good to be bothered. Working with guys like Snuka was amazing. He was my favorite of ex-WWE guys to work with. But it's not even necessarily the big name guys. You know, you would learn from anybody who had experience. Even guys that have just been in the indies for 20 years, just from what they've seen and what they've done. Yeah, absolutely. And as an old guy, I'm more than happy to admit I learn from young guys all the time. You know, right till the last match I had worked, and I'd love to get in the ring once more, but that's another topic. But there's a lot to be learned from young guys because the business evolves all the time. And while they can learn from my experiences from me, I can learn from their ideas. Anytime in any business, as far as I'm concerned, if you poo-poo somebody away or don't want to hear from them because they're too old or because they lack experience, you're just depriving yourself. That's not to say that everything you ever hear is going to be good advice. A lot of it's going to be crap. But the least you should do is entertain it because it only stands to be able to help you at some point. HD says, what would you look for in a good wrestling school? Take a good look at the instructors and see what their history is in the business. And then if the school is, and I think most of those have been phased out, is all about you going in and seeing how many squat thrusts you can do or doing squat thrusts till you puke, I would leave. Because that's conditioning is on you. And through the course of your training, if you're not in condition, it will show. But other than that, you should be learning the basics. You should go in, and the first thing they should be teaching you is about respect. Because even to this day, if you go into locker rooms without the proper respect, it's going to end badly for you. Why that respect is there, why it's so important. And then they should be taken right from the ground up. Teach you to bump, first thing. And if you're afraid to just throw your body flat on the mat, what we would do is take guys, have you squat down, hold the middle rope, and just let yourself go from there. They should start you right from the very beginning, right from the basics. You don't skip any steps. And if you already know it, great, you're going to do well at it. But they should be taking you right from square one. And again, if it's any of those schools that, as I said, just want you to do squat thrusts till you puke to prove that, they're a tough school, they probably don't know what the fuck they're doing. Just some dipshit says, I was watching old Orton stuff from when he was in OVW, and apparently he's on top saying, I don't care about wrestling, I'm just here for a check. His growth as a man and wrestler is crazy. Yeah. Oh, Randy Orton's grown a lot. growing up, just from what what is public knowledge about him and what he admits to himself. Yeah, he's matured a lot. I heard an interview with him once, and I'm paraphrasing it. I can't remember exactly how I said it, but it was great. And they asked him something about, if you could do it all over again, would you do anything differently? And he said, not really, except for one thing. He said, when you're 19, 20, and you're in great shape and everything, your choice of gear that you're going to make iconic for you is very important. Because if I known then what I know now, I wouldn't be wearing a fucking Speedo into the ring at 40-something years old. So in other words, he was saying maybe the Speedo wasn't a good idea because it wasn't something he wanted to do permanently, but he's got no choice because that's how everybody knows. Orton can't come out in pants now. It just ain't going to work. But I was just paraphrasing, but because I still remember I was listening to an interview in the car, so I don't know who it was with. Might have been Howard Stern or something like that, but it was funny. Steamboat is 70? I didn't think he was that many years older than me. Wow, you're 25, right? Okay, Where Songs wins the internet for the day. So he's 8 years older than me. I thought it was only a couple. Always did anyway. Stays in good shape. Probably doesn't have his gym anymore then. Wow, I didn't think Steamboat was 70. Oh, J Money says, I would love to see a match between you and Mick if only his body weren't so messed up. I would have loved to have worked Mick Foley. Oh, that would have been about that. And somebody I always wished I could have been in the ring was Mark Calloway, just because I have such huge respect for the Undertaker. Oh, that was such a classic gimmick. He's such an amazing wrestler. But yeah, those two guys, as far as my wish list, if I could have ever been in the ring with, yeah, Mick Foley and Undertaker. That would have been great. All right, guys. Well, I got to go. Hey, thanks for this conversation. We're going to do these streams regular. Thank you for all the interaction and everything. But we'll do these on the regular, especially with WrestleMania coming up. And we'll just do general wrestling topics, and we'll do pointed, focused things on specific parts of the business as well. But in the meantime, too, any of our videos or anything like that, if you guys have any questions about the business or anything, post them in comments. I read all the comments. So, but I enjoyed this a lot. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. And again, make sure you got the little bell ticked and everything. And hopefully YouTube will actually send you out notifications, because a lot of times, as I do have really packed days, when I get to stream, it's just like, okay, I can fit it in now. So I can't give you guys warning ahead of time. So, but I'll be back streaming and talking wrestling with you guys as often as I can. I'll talk to you guys really soon.